Hello, guys. As of about 20 hours ago, Raphael Warnock has been reelected to his first full term as a United States Senator from the state of Georgia. And he won by a pretty solid margin. I don't mean that literally. He didn't win by over 15, but for a purple state, he won by a pretty good margin. So how did he win? Well, in short, or at least as short as I can, Herschel Walker did at least average in the rural Georgia areas. And so what a Republican needs to do in Georgia to win is make sure they have great turnout in rural areas, as well as getting a decent amount of support in metropolitan areas. They don't have a chance of winning them. However, if they get a certain number of votes there, that could be enough to propel them to victory. And Walker did the first half of that. He met at least the minimum standards needed in the rural areas of Georgia. He was okay there. However, the thing that made him lose the election is he fell flat in Georgia's metropolitan areas, in its large cities, Atlanta, Columbus, Savannah. He did fairly terrible, especially in the suburbs, because he is a fairly awful candidate. All of his controversies that he's had and his frankly hypocritical opinions on things like abortion and the scandals that have come out about him with abortion have really hurt him in these suburban areas that he needed to do at least somewhat well in. He didn't have a chance at winning them. He didn't have a chance at winning Atlanta or Savannah. However, there are so many people in Atlanta and Savannah and Columbus and all of the large areas in Georgia that even if they are solidly blue, there are so many people there that there's still a ton of Republican votes that he needed to win in those cities, and he fell flat there. And in the suburbs, and he fell flat there. The reason Brian Kemp was such a great candidate, and the reason he won by 8 points in a purple state, is because he was great in the suburbs. A moderate-ish Republican who wasn't about overturning the election, was a great candidate and was great in the suburbs and was good enough in the suburbs to win by 8 points. And I think him campaigning for Walker was the only reason that Walker didn't lose by an even larger margin. So we have seen through Kemp how a Republican can win the suburbs in Georgia. But Herschel Walker did not do that. Or at least do well in the suburbs in Georgia. But Herschel Walker did not do that. He had so many scandals that he was toxic in the suburbs. And without Kemp on the ballot, he lost them dramatically. Like DeKalb County, Warnock won it by 90%. Like, holy cow. That's insane. That is how terrible Walker did in the areas that he needed to get a certain threshold in to be able to win. He did terrible in those areas, and it's how he was able to lose. He did okay in the rural areas, but he just fell flat in the suburbs due to his scandals and in the large cities. And that's how he did so bad. So this election was fairly good for pollsters and predictors. We were fairly on it. Like, this is probably the first Senate election this cycle where we were actually fairly close. Most people were predicting between 2 and 4% for Warnock. I predicted 3.3, and he ended up winning by 2.8. So we were all fairly close. Granted, there were some people who were predicting Warnock plus 8, and at the time that seemed like maybe a possibility, but most people were predicting Warnock plus 2 to 4, and that ended up being what happened. The pollsters were fairly accurate, as they normally are in the state of Georgia, but overall, things were fairly good for pollsters and predictors in Georgia. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but we did pretty good. So the votes were counted very fast, I must say. By 10:30 on the East Coast, Warnock was declared the winner, which is really, really, really good timing. In 2020, we all remember waiting days for Georgia's results and them coming out in small vote dumps out of key areas, which was enough to make Biden catch up. But Biden only caught up in days of counting, days and days of painful counting, and painful waiting. And between the 2020 election and these midterms, Georgia changed their laws to now they can count ballots before polls close. They don't tabulate them because that gives you the actual results, and they can't do that. But they still count them, which is how they were able to count it so fast. And they did a great job at counting. I thought they did a great job last time when they had 99% counted by 2 a.m. But this time, in 3.5 hours, they were able to call a winner in a key battleground purple state. Round of applause to the poll workers, the people who spent hours counting, the people who managed them. They all just did a great job. Being able to count this many votes this fast is a great accomplishment for them. So I give them a round of applause on counting the votes so fast. So a lot of people are seeing Warnock doing this well, and a lot of his supporters are saying even if he runs against a normal Republican candidate in 2028, when he runs for re-election then, Georgia will be much bluer of a state, and he will be able to win re-election then as well. And a lot of people are seeing that and going, well, the reason that he won, and I honestly agree with this, the reason he won isn't just because Walker was a bad candidate. The reason he won, well, is also kind of because it was because Walker was a bad candidate, but also, don't take that off context. About half of the reason he won was because Walker was a bad candidate. But the other half was because him himself was a good candidate. Raphael Warnock is a good candidate. He knows how to turn out African Americans, minorities. He knows how to turn out metropolitan areas. He knows how to get the Atlanta suburbs. He is a juggernaut with turning out minorities. He's amazing at it. And that's how he was able to win by such a large margin, as well as Walker being a bad candidate. But it was a two-way street, I guess is the way you say it. It wasn't just because Walker was a bad candidate. It was also because Warnock is a good candidate. So a lot of people are seeing that and saying he can win re-election in 2028, or maybe even run for president in 2032 or 2028. And he would be a good candidate. I'm not going to really discuss on that. That's way out. But he would be a good candidate. And a lot of people are starting to see now, after his great performance here, that he could be a good candidate for president with turning out the metropolitan areas, turning out minorities, which is how Democrats win. And he's proven himself tonight. A lot of people before this still considered Georgia as a red state. But Warnock took that and won by almost 3%, which is insane in a state like Georgia, which the last time it voted for a Democrat presidential candidate was 1992 until Biden in 2020. It's a very new purple state, and a lot of people are just starting to see that it's a purple state after what Warnock has done last night. He did a great job at showing that Georgia is a purple state. It's not a red state that had a fluke in 2020. It is a purple state, and it's shifting to the left very, very fast, and he did a great job at proving that. So, final thing I'm going to discuss. What does this mean for the Senate? Well, this means they'll have an extra vote. They'll be at 51 Senate seats, including the independents. And this will be great for them. This means they won't be able to pass that many bills because... So there are two moderate to conservative Democrats in the Senate. There's Kyrsten Sinema and there's Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin is generally the more conservative of the two. So this Senate win means that his vote has basically been counteracted. But Kyrsten Sinema's vote is still there. So they can't do crazy things like repeal the filibuster and do stuff like that because she's still there. And they can't pass big bills because while they still have a small majority, the Republicans have the House. Again, albeit with a small majority. So they won't be able to pass many bills. However, they will be able to do one very important thing, and that is continue to appoint justices to the Supreme Court, judges to federal courts. They will be able to do that. They will fill up these seats and be able to appoint judges that Joe Manchin might not agree that much with, and he might not have the support for, but they would still be able to do because they don't need his support. They have 51 seats. And finally, what does this mean for 2024 and the Senate elections in 2024? This puts Democrats in a much better position because currently there are 3 Democrat seats that are up in 2024 that are held by a Democrat in a state that Donald Trump won in 2020. Those are John Tester in Montana, Sherrod Brown in Ohio, and Joe Manchin in West Virginia. Joe Manchin, so tomorrow I'm going to release a Senate map. It's not going to be an election night that takes way too much time. It's going to be on a political map simulator. I'm going to discuss the Senate map and my Senate predictions tomorrow for 2024. But right now, just a bit of a sneak peek. Joe Manchin, he can still pull it out, but it's going to be very, very, very tough for him because he is in a state that Donald Trump won by 40% in 2020, or almost 40%. So while he has a special appeal and he can still pull it out, it's going to be very, very tough for him. So if the Democrats don't have to win his seat, then they will have a much easier time, and they won't. If Biden is reelected, which if Trump's the nominee, he probably will. I'm going to get into that in another video, president prediction. But if Biden is reelected, they can lose a Senate seat, which will probably be West Virginia. They have a margin of error. They can lose a seat, which means it's still an uphill battle. They still have to win Montana, which is Trump plus 15, and Ohio, which is Trump plus 8. However, it is much, much, much easier to do that than to win a Trump plus 40 state like West Virginia, even if Joe Manchin has special appeal there. So this means Democrats will have a much easier time in 2024, and even if they don't retain the Senate in 2024, they won't lose as many seats. So, in conclusion, pollsters were fairly accurate. Warnock won by a pretty decent-sized margin. He did it by turning out metropolitan areas. Warnock lost by, well, he did okay in rural areas, really falling flat in those big city areas. This means Democrats are going to have a much easier time in 2024, and they'll be able to appoint many more judges, and votes were counted very quickly. Warnock won by a very large margin, and people are starting to see that, see he is a good candidate, see Georgia is a purple state, and see that maybe he could run for president. Thank you guys very much for watching. Tomorrow, I'm going to be releasing a video on my 2024 Senate predictions. Yesterday, I had an audio issue. Only one side of the audio was coming out. I apologize. Also, in the Senate map in the slideshow, Alaska and Hawaii weren't filled in. Sorry, I forget about them. Even though they're two amazing states, but I forgot about them. I apologize. But I fixed the audio issue, and in my next election nights, I'm not going to forget Alaska and Hawaii. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. You don't have to subscribe. I'm not trying to guilt trip you. I'm just kidding. But, yeah, I mean, you don't have to, but this channel's pretty new. If you want to give it some momentum, again, you don't have to, but if you want, maybe subscribe. And I'll see you guys in another video tomorrow. I'm going to try daily uploads as long as I can until I get burnt out, and then inevitably take like a few day break, and then go back and do like every other day uploads. That's just my prediction. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for spending your time watching this new channel, and even considering watching a small channel, because most people just will watch big channels. So thank you for considering watching me ramble nonsensically for 15 minutes, 16 minutes. But thank you, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.